I'm Frank Garza. Welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. We are 1 week away from Mauricio Pochettino announcing his final USMNT roster for the World Cup. The roster reveal show will be on Tuesday, May 26th. And on today's show, we're going to predict what that roster will look like. To help me do that, Larry Henry Jr. is back on the show. Larry is the managing editor for SBI Soccer. All right, Larry, so we've been meeting regularly over the last 5, 6 months, always kind of tweaking our roster prediction. Now we've made it to our final prediction, the big one. Are you ready?
I am ready, Frank. Thanks again for having me. It's been fun to break this down over the last few months, to see all the changes we've made. I couldn't sleep last night. I was up all night trying to put this together, trying to make sure I had all my picks in. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm excited to break it down.
Yeah. You know what? Just on that note, I really thought when I went to go put this final roster together that it was going to be really hard for me and I was really going to be struggling. I actually found it pretty easy to make my quote unquote tough calls. I didn't actually hesitate too much. That kind of surprised me. It just felt like everything kind of fell into place. I think the injuries to Patrick Agyemang and Johnny Cardoso helped a lot because before those injuries, we were kind of having to face some more tough decisions. But anyway, that's kind of how I felt. I feel pretty good about my roster. Let's get into it. Let's start with goalkeepers. I'm going to let you go first. I have both yours and my predictions up on the screen. Who you going for your three goalkeepers?
So for the goalies, I'm keeping it the way I had it in our last prediction post. So I'm going to go with Matt Freese, Matt Turner, and Chris Brady. I think Patrick Schulte would be kind of like that third to fourth spot. Like with Brady, I know both of them have played, very regularly in MLS over the past couple seasons. I know Schulte had missed some time this season. Brady seems to be playing week in and week out for Chicago, who look very exciting under Greg Berhalter. So I think Brady gets the nod for me. I think he gives you a little bit of like an X factor kind of ability over like a Schulte. I don't think Schulte's done anything particularly wrong. I just that it's kind of like pick one out of the hat between the two. I think Brady right now is kind of the hotter hand than Schulte. For the number two spot, I still think it's going to be Matt Turner. I know I've gotten some grief on Twitter with some folks about this whole battle for the number one position, Freese and Turner. And, while Freese had played a whole bunch for the national team in 2025, it seems like a lot of people are maybe siding more with Turner based off his MLS performances. And he's had a really good season. I definitely think he's going to be up for the All-Star game this year. He's had a really good season for the Revolution. But I still think it's Matt Freese's job to lose. I don't think he's done anything to really hurt his chances. I know, both of the goalies featured in the March window. And I just think that Freese, maybe gives you a little bit more than Turner. He's a little bit younger. I think he comes up with some big saves, whether it's, I remember in the Gold Cup against Costa Rica, he had a really good performance in the shootout. I know Matt Turner has come up with some big saves over the years for the national team, but I just think right now Matt Freese is the number one, barring that there's no changes to his form or his fitness or anything like that. So I'd go Freese, Turner, Brady in that order.
Yeah, I have it the same way, and this one is one I'm pretty confident with Freese and Turner. Brady, I'm not as confident. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Patrick Schulte rolled in there. Wouldn't surprise me at all, if it's somebody else. I mean, remember Greg Berhalter ended up bringing um, Sean Johnson, right, well, as like his third goalkeeper because it seemed like he didn't want Matt Turner to feel like Zach Steffen was there kind of lurking. And so who knows what Pochettino and his staff feel like the best third goalkeeper is, to match, with Freese and Turner and why they think that. But Brady seemed to be third on the depth chart in the March camp, and so I'm going with him. But I do think, Patrick Schulte offers a lot too. I mean, he's played in some if you did, if something terrible happened and all of a sudden you had to start your third goalkeeper in a World Cup match. I mean, Schulte has, played in the Olympics. He's played in some MLS Cup finals. So he's played in big games before, big international games before. And so with that experience, I could see him being, a good option as well. Okay, so right now we're all in agreement. Let's go to defenders. Um, and I'll kind of go first on this one. And you know what, Larry? We each predicted the same defenders. I'm gonna spoil it a little bit. We're 12 for 12, with 3 for 3 on the goalkeepers, and we each predicted 9 defenders. Chris Richards, Tim Ream, Miles Robinson, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest, Max Arfstead, and Alex Freeman. This one also was pretty straightforward with me. The biggest issue I had was leaving Joe Scally off. Um, because I mean, yeah, he's just a guy that plays so many minutes at the Bundesliga, plays 90 minutes week in and week out. But at the end of the day, I just don't think he fits Pochettino's system that much. Um, I wouldn't put him ahead of any of these 9 defenders on my list. And so then it becomes, do I bring another defender or do I bring another midfielder or attacker? And I ultimately decided to bring another midfielder or attacker versus bring in an extra defender like Joe Scally. How'd you think about the defenders?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty straightforward. I mean, I think everybody on both of yours and my list should are there for a reason, right? These are all guys that played with the national team for a while now, and played under Berhalter and now Pochettino and the coaches that were in the mix as well. Scally was a tough one. I know earlier in the year, I think when we did this projection, I might have had Scally in there over Alex Freeman for the reasons you said, right? Just that Joe Scally logged a lot of minutes again for Gladbach in the Bundesliga. He seems like a consistent defensive defender in comparison to where I feel as Freeman is good defensively, but maybe gives you a little more in the final third than a Scally. And then also too with how Pochettino plays with that third center back. Sometimes we've seen him mix it up where he's put like a right back in there as a third center back, and then played like another kind of right back in that right wing back role. And I'm curious to see where what he thinks between Scally and Freeman maybe in that role. I know both of them have kind of played there a little bit. The one kind of question mark still up in the air, right, is with Chris Richards, obviously with his fitness. We don't know kind of where he's going to be in a week time. Obviously he kind of hobbled off the field on Sunday against Brentford. Had his cleat off, ankle was very swollen. Oliver Glasner said post match. They didn't really have an update at the time. He still had to get scans and everything like that. And obviously, the club kind of takes their time with that. Crystal Palace have one match left in the league on Sunday against Arsenal, who were, recently crowned champions. And then they have the Conference League final 3 days later against Rayo Vallecano from La Liga. So a first ever European final. And obviously, Chris Richards will be a big miss for Palace in that European final, but he would also be equally as big of a miss for the national team. So I'm curious to see what happens. I imagine Glasner's going to rotate heavy in the league match because Palace can't really go up or down too much in terms of European spots. He's probably going to want to give guys a rest ahead of the final. Richards, I imagine, would be one of them because he would probably start the final if he's able to do so. But if there's some way that he cannot be part of the World Cup roster, then we have to consider, okay, who's going to be the center back that maybe steps in. And I know we've had, other guys we've mentioned, Noah Kai Banks, Tristan Blackman, Walker Zimmerman, George Campbell. I'm curious to see what way Pochettino goes if Richards is unavailable. Hopefully he'll be there. I think he still will be there when it's all said and done. But yeah, I think the defenders are pretty straightforward for both of our lists.
Yeah, you gotta think if there's any chance Chris Richards can, even if he had to miss like the first group stage game, second group stage game, you would bring him because he's just far and away our best center back. The guy I think is most at risk here is Miles Robinson because he's been injured a lot the last couple months. I think over the weekend he played 45 minutes and they took him off at halftime out of precaution because of another possible injury. And so I don't know. He's just been so up and down because of the injuries that he's the one guy I could see slipping, and then maybe a Joe Scally comes in there. Okay, well let's go to our central midfielders now. And here's where we have our first disagreement. I'm going to let you take the lead on this one though, and tell me about the four central midfielders you brought in.
So for the central midfielders, I think you have to go with Tyler Adams. I mean, he's the number one guy, right? He's back fit. He's playing. He logged 90 minutes tonight against Man City in a 1-1 draw. Probably one of his better overall performances of the season. I think it was his first 90 minutes since March 3rd. So we're talking, 2 months now that he had not been able to go 90 minutes just because of injuries and fitness. And Bournemouth likes to rotate their midfield, but yeah, he's the ringleader. He's the guy that gets things going. He's going to cover a lot of ground. He's your leader in midfield. You have Christian Roldan, who I know a lot of folks might not want him there. I just can't see Poch leaving him out because it seems like he's called on him in some moments. Before a couple games in 2025, I know he started him. It seems like he's kind of like that Swiss Army knife. Hey, I need you to play this role, or I need you to slot in here, and he does that, and he does that kind of no questions asked. He'll come in if it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 90 minutes, and he'll do a job. He might not be the most glitz glamorous midfielder, but he works hard for the team. He has a lot of veteran experience. He's played in some big time moments before, and I think he ultimately deserves a shot on this roster. And then the last two I had was Sebastian Berhalter and Aiden Morris. Sebastian Berhalter, I think, just brings you, again, a lot of what Roldan does in terms of his work rate, in terms of his energy. He's been able to score some goals this season for Vancouver. I think he's one of our better options in terms of, set piece creativity and corner kicks and deliveries into the box. And then with Morris, he's had a really good season. I know he missed a month in the fall with injury, but he's come back. He's, nearly started every match for Middlesbrough in the second half of the season. It sounds like they'll reportedly now be in the promotion final after being knocked out by Southampton, but reportedly the EFL had made the announcement that Southampton's now expelled because of their Spygate incident. So it sounds like Middlesbrough will be in the promotion final against Hull City, which, obviously is great for them, but great for Aiden Morris. I mean, he played 44 matches this season, was really, really influential in Middlesbrough's midfield. And I think, again, as Roldan and Berhalter do, he's another one that just will kind of run his heart out for the team, and put in a lot of good work, on the ball and off the ball as well.
Okay, and so I have the same four: Tyler Adams, Christian Roldan, Sebastian Berhalter, Aiden Morris. I also have Tanner Tessman. Tell me about why you left off Tanner Tessman. Was it due to him kind of being injured?
Yeah, that was really the reason. We haven't had too many updates, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of what his availability is. I know he I think it was going into Lyon's last two matches. He was going to be done for the rest of the season because of his injury. He had missed, I guess, that weekend, and then was ruled out for the last two. I haven't heard or read anything about his kind of where his fitness is, or where he's at, because Lyon's season had just concluded. I'm not sure if we're going to get an announcement from them. Probably not. I'm sure we'll get some rumblings from whether it's the French media or the American media, or US soccer. But yeah, that was kind of the reason why I left him off. I think if he's definitely deserving of a spot if healthy. He's had a really good season. But again, kind of similar to with even Johnny Cardoso, a guy we haven't gotten into yet, but obviously he had an injury as well, and he was originally on my list before, and injuries have popped up now for a few key guys, and I think ultimately this might spell Tessman's kind of end of the road for the World Cup as well.
Yeah, I know when they initially announced the injury, they said he's done for the season, the rest of the season, but he would still be available for the World Cup. But I haven't heard any specifics about what exactly the injury is, how he's doing, if he's on schedule. Um, I would imagine Poch and his staff are in close communication, with the club. If that is true, if he's, if they just decided to shut him down for the last, couple games of the season and he's going to be fine in a couple weeks, I still think he's going to make it in there because I do think he's far enough up on the depth chart. But yeah, that's one we'll have to watch. That's one we'll have to watch. You don't know how much of a risk Poch is going to take on him if he's not, fully fit, in the next week. Okay, let's go to attackers next. Okay. And we also had a difference here. I went with Christian Pulisic, Timothy Weah, Weston McKennie, Malik Tillman, Alex Zendejas, Diego Luna. You went with Pulisic, Weah, McKennie, Tillman, Zendejas, and then Aronson and Gio Reyna. And so I have Diego Luna in, you have Diego Luna out. You have Brennan Aronson and Gio Reyna in. I don't have them in. And it's interesting. We both put Alex and Dejas in because he's kind of seen as a bubble player. I just think he's playing too well to like leave at home. I just, for the life of me, cannot see how Gio Reyna could be included in this roster based on the just the limited action he's played this season. And I know we're trying to predict what Poch is going to do, and Poch did bring him in March, has talked about him as a special player. And so, maybe this is me just relying on too much what I would do. But I just still think at the end of the day, when Poch has to actually leave somebody else off of a World Cup roster, somebody who's deserving, to bring in Gio Reyna, my prediction is he won't do it. I don't think he'll leave off like a Diego Luna to bring in a Gio Reyna, but I could be wrong there. And then Brennan Aronson, I had a hard time with him as well, but again, for me, I think we've talked about this on the show before. There were four players, Zendejas, Luna, Aronson, and Gio Reyna, that I thought all four of those are kind of on the bubble. Only two of them, I've always thought only two of those four would make the roster. And I ultimately decided to go with Zendejas and Luna just because I think they can be bigger difference makers.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough decision for sure. I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth in my head about this, right? Because Luna, was missing the early part of the MLS season, was coming back from an injury, which kind of derailed the start of his season. But he's come back. He's playing again. He's been able to add some contributions for Salt Lake, which is really good. Probably more, than Aronson and Reyna over the past few months. It's tough because I do think Zendejas will be there. I think I'm in the same boat with you. He's playing too well and kind of ended the season on a really good note for Club America. That I just don't see how you can leave him off. I know there's been some disappointment for him in the past as well, being left off some other rosters under Pochettino, and it's kind of like, what else do I have to do to kind of get in there? So I think Zendejas will be there. Aronson is, I think the reason why I'm going more with Aronson and Reyna is again is I think there's some familiarity there in terms of he's called those guys in. Do I think Gio Reyna is deserving of a spot? No, but do I think Pochettino will ultimately call him in? Yes, because he's made it clear in the past with his press conferences that Gio Reyna could play 5 minutes a month for Gladbach, but they know how special he is and creative he is and how important he is to the national team. So it's kind of like, hey, it doesn't matter what you do at the club level as long as you don't get hurt. you're important to us, so we're going to call you in. And and I think he said that even in the past. Was it the November window? And Reina got a big goal against Paraguay, and I was there, and it was great to kind of see that moment for him because he had been through a lot over the past few years. Um, and I know he ended the season recently. He's played some minutes here and there. Still a lot less than what we wanted him to have. But I still think that Pochettino is just going to find a way to get him in, have him be with the squad. I think it'd be a big disappointment for Gio Reyna if he's not there, just because, the way 2022 went with Greg Berhalter and then now this World Cup. And then it's like, okay, then you got to look to 2030. Aronson, I just think there's, experience there. Again, kind of like a Roll Dan in the sense he's going to work his socks off when he's out there. If I need you for 10 minutes, he's going to, run his heart out. The contributions in front of goal might not be there all the time, but he works hard. And I think Pochettino maybe rewards that a little bit more than, some of the guys who, like a Luna, who might be more creative than Reyna and Aronson, but, he's going to want guys there that are going to work hard. And that's not a knock to Diego Luna that he's not going to work hard. I just think that's how Pochettino is. I mean, we saw Aronson in the March camp. He didn't really play all that much. Seen him in the fall, didn't see him play tons. He just continues to kind of find a way there. Just his profile of an attacking midfielder. So I think it's a tough spot. I definitely see why you have Diego Luna there. I think Diego Luna is maybe more rewarding than Gio Reyna, but again, I have to kind of put this in perspective too, which what Poch has thought in the past.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, because he has been so inconsistent with his picks, and there's just so many guys in and out because of injuries. I don't feel like we've gotten too many looks at what Poch feels like the best roster would be, and so I'm expecting some curveballs here. I'm not expecting any curveballs with the strikers. We both have Fuller and Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Haji Wright. This one was easy for me. It's obviously to me these three guys, and I don't think the next guy up, Josh Sargent or Brian Wyatt, really has a chance. Did you find this one pretty easy too, picking the strikers?
Oh yeah, this was the easiest kind of one for me in terms of narrowing it down. Obviously, Ajaman's injury was heartbreaking for him because I thought he had a really good chance, and we both had him in our list before. But once his injury happened, I kind of thought, okay, now he's got the three guys solidified. I didn't think Josh Sargent or Brian White, no matter how many goals they scored in MLS this spring, would have really forced themselves over, Balogun, Wright, and Pepe. They had three really good club seasons. I know Haji Wright had some hiccups along the way where he had that big drought kind of over the winter period, and then he, ended the season with some goals. Got promoted, which is an awesome story with Coventry City. Hoping that they have a successful season next year and don't just drop right back down. Ricardo Pepi again missed some time with injuries, but ended the season on a really good note. I think it was six in a row to end the season with at least one goal. Got near the 20 mark, which is awesome for him. Really good stuff from him and Balogun. I think will be if the world match day one's tomorrow, I think Balogun's got to be your number 9 starting. He, I think, has shown me the most out of these three guys in terms of the last 16 months with the national team. He scored some goals in the fall in 2025 for the national team, whereas Pepe didn't really have too many chances and didn't really make the most of the minimal chances that he had. I know Wright had some goals as well, but I just think Balogun, again, ended the season on a kind of a quieter note in terms of goals. He had that really good run over like that March, April period, kind of cooled off a bit. Monaco missed out on Europe, which is disappointing. But yeah, I just think it'd be very, very shocking to see any of these three left off the roster.
Right. Okay, so there you go. I mean, at the end of the day, out of our 26-man roster prediction, we only have two differences. I have Tanner Tessman and Diego Luna in. Instead of those guys, you have Brennan Aronson and Gio Reyna in. We'll see what Poch does. Let me just ask you one final question before we go. What was the hardest decision for you, the most difficult pick? Which player, did you include and which player did you exclude on like your most challenging decision?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to Gio Reyna. That was probably the hardest pick for me, in terms of, do I personally, like, if this was my roster, just because, again, I don't think Gio Reyna is particularly deserving of a spot because of his club season, and kind of the continued dip he's taken in his club career. So that was tough for me, but I understand why Poch would bring him in, because he's had a lot of praise for Gio Reyna in the past, and ultimately I think that might be enough to Poch for him to bring him in. And then to flip it, I think the toughest would for me would be Diego Luna. I know it's the two picks we kind of had opposite, but yeah, I think Diego Luna is deserving of a spot right now. He's back in positive form, and playing at a good level. Has played hard for the national team when he was last involved in last year. So that's a tough one for me. I know there's a couple other guys we had on our other options. I know you had Gozo with Salt Lake. He's had a really good season. Julian Hall's another one that I continuously see tossed around, even though he's a young player. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if, I know we're never probably going to see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Julian Hall and Xavier Gozo were on the preliminary roster, given, how well they played. I just don't think it's their time per se. I think Potch is going to go with some guys he's experienced with, and have been in some big time moments before, rather than call in two young kids that really haven't been with the national team in his time. But that just means, for those two, at least 2030 will be around the corner. The Olympics will be around the corner. They have very bright futures, hopefully long careers as well. So yeah, so those are two guys I thought maybe could be on the bubble as well, given how well they're playing in MLS right now. And sometimes you have to go with the hot hand.
Yeah. I mean, deserving or not, I just don't see, when I thought about those guys, I don't see Poch bringing in somebody that he hasn't brought into a camp yet, just because he values that like personal relationship and like getting a feel for the player. So I think he would be more reluctant than most to bring in somebody brand spanking new who he's never met. But hey, Poch surprises me, so you never know. The hardest decision for me actually was leaving Jack McGlynn off. I've been a Jack McGlynn fan for this entire cycle ever since he came into that January camp, I guess like a year and a half ago, and Podge consistently brought him in over and over again up until he had that foot injury at the end of the MLS season. Then he kind of lost his place and hasn't found his way back in, but he's been playing really well. He scored an absolute golazo a couple weeks ago for Houston, and he just gives you this long range distance shot. I think he's one of the best passers on this team. And like I said, he was in the team consistently up until that injury, and now he seems to be fully fit, playing well again. It wouldn't shock me if Poch brought him in over one of these other central midfielders. I mean, it's really hard for me to imagine, but we know Tyler Adams is going to be there. But between Christian Roldan, Sebastian Berhalter, Aiden Morris, Tanner Testament, it's hard for me to imagine one of those four guys not being there. But does Poch see an opportunity to say, okay, McGlynn brings something different than all four of those guys, so I'm going to leave one of those four at home and bring McGlynn in? That wouldn't surprise me at all. And I would love that because I'm actually kind of cheering for Jack McGlynn. I wanted to put him in so bad to the roster, but I just didn't, I couldn't see who to leave off. But he was the hardest decision for me. Like I said, leaving Gio Reyna off was easy, even though I know I could be like flat out wrong on that. And then leaving Brennan Aronson off and Joe Scally were also, it was also tough just because it feels like they're deserving, right? They play at big clubs, they've been playing consistently all season, they seem like good team guys. It's tough to leave players off like that. But at the end of the day, I just don't see them having like as big of an impact as some of these other players on the roster, and so I just think they'll be left. They'll be left. But we'll see. We'll know in 1 week at the live roster reveal show. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see it. And then, man, once we finish that show, everything's in motion, right? You know the roster. Then on the following Saturday, they have their first tune-up friendly against Senegal, and we're going to be off and running for the World Cup.
Yep. Yeah, it's coming thick and fast, as I used to say back in the day. Thick and fast when you got the it's like
Yeah.
in the Premier League, you got that holiday festive schedule. You're playing every 48 hours or whatever it is. Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be fun. I know there's gonna be probably some disappointment as well with some players, maybe left off or have to miss because of injuries and unfortunately, that's how it goes. But yeah, really excited because like I think what is it? We're already less than 30 days to the World Cup getting underway. Yeah, it's starting to become more and more real now. That the World Cup is gonna get underway.
Oh, yes. Yep. Relax this final week because next week we're going to be off and running. All right, Larry, thanks so much for joining the show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at lhenry019, and also to your work at SBI Soccer. Thanks again so much for coming back on.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Appreciate it. We'll definitely do this again leading up into the 2030 World Cup.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
When,
We'll
when
probably do
pop,
our first 2030 World Cup roster prediction like the week after the World Cup is finished. This
Yeah,
World Cup is
who
finished.
yeah, who will be the next 10 faces on the national team? No, that's exciting. I was thinking that the other day, like, the next World Cup cycle of having to go through qualifying and stuff like that again and having to, you know, are the US as good as we thought they were? And, because they'll, lose a game to Haiti or something like that in qualifying. But that's for another day.
That's for another day. All right. Thanks, Larry, and thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else, thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X or Blue Sky at Frank Garza 007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.